Hey there, fellow singers. Stephen here again with Austin Opera, bringing you part 3 of the High Note video series. Again, these videos are primarily targeted towards tenors and basses, but if you're a soprano or alto and you find some of these ideas helpful, that's awesome. If you have not yet seen parts 1 and 2, you can check out those videos for more tips and tricks and exercises, and hopefully you'll find some more information in this video really helpful. In video number 2, we talked about not overbalancing and overweighting the middle of the voice. We talked about navigating through all the ranges, and we talked about narrowing those vowels a little bit if we needed to up toward the top of the voice. Those are all some really good strategies. Now in this video, I'm going to talk about the thing that I see more than probably anything else with high notes, with young singers especially, and this is probably the biggest no-no. Oftentimes we see a high note coming and we start to do this. We start to lift our chin and reach for that high note. And you do not need to do that. It's not actually helping you. It's actually creating more tension here and making it harder to sing that note. So that's one of the first things I often talk about with singers. Do not raise your chin to reach for the high note. You can help yourself, just remind yourself, keep your chin kind of parallel to the floor, maybe slightly raised, just like maybe 5 degrees. A little tiny lift can be helpful if you're compressing in your neck and maybe you're actually squishing a little too low. A little raise can help. When we're talking about on the stage, we often talk about singing up to the balcony. You also have this kind of lift in your posture that really helps with the singing. The other thing that can be helpful is if you have a really bad habit of lifting, if you take your fingers and make an L and you put a finger here on your chin and then your thumb going to your chest and just maintain that contact as you go higher, do not let yourself lose contact with your thumb to your chest or your finger to your chin. You always want to keep that contact connected. Now, you can still certainly open up greater mouth space. We just don't want to lose the contact by lifting our chin. The image that my voice teacher in undergrad used, because he knew I played piano as well, he asked me, are the high notes on the piano any higher than the low notes? No, they're all on the same horizontal plane. So in my mind, I just imagine my high notes being further to the right, or I imagine them in this same uniform band right here, and I put all my notes right there, and then I don't feel the tendency to reach up for those high notes. That's the physical thing to work on. Because what happens, as I said, when we reach for those high notes, we start to get tense here in the sides of our throat. We might start to get some jaw tension going on. We don't want any part of that. So to help with the tension aspect, I am a huge fan of any exercise involving a lip trill. So what we're going to do now, we're going to do an exercise that involves an arpeggio like we learned in the previous video, but this is going to be a double arpeggio with a lip trill and an ah. So a lip trill, if you've never done one, is also called a lip buzz or a lip bubble, and that is just what we're blowing air through our lips and we just go and you can try that without any notes at all. Just give that a try. Go give it a try. Good, and if you notice you're having trouble keeping the lip trill going, you can put your fingers up here to kind of help stabilize the muscles a little bit. We're not pushing in, we're just letting our fingers sit right here. If you can't do a lip trill at all, you can sometimes substitute a rolled R, so a I find that a little harder to do, so I like lip trills, but some people love rolled R's. And then some people use the letter V, they go instead of a lip trill. Whichever one you want to use is fine. I'm going to demonstrate with lip trills. So this exercise, we're going to go with so we do one arpeggio up and down on a lip trill and one on an ah vowel. Let's give it a try. Here we go. Keep going, nice and bright. Think up and over that top note. Fly right through it. more. Here we go. Basses, if it's too low, feel free to drop out. It's okay. Or if you use falsetto. Last one. Here we go. Good. Very nice. So in the previous video, we also talked about narrowing that ah vowel towards the top of your range. You might find as you get higher, especially you tenors, that you need to kind of think of opening up the sound again once you get maybe G, A flat, A, some of those higher notes up there. That's okay if you want to think of opening up your ah vowel a little bigger then after you've moved through that middle high part of your voice. The image I think of when I'm navigating any part of my range is I'm trying to carry a large couch through a house. I don't know why, but I am. If I take that couch through a room, from a room to a hallway, I have to turn it so it fits in the hallway. But if I carry it into the hallway wide, I'm going to get stuck. It's not going to work. So I have to shift the couch this way, move through the hallway. I get to the next room, I can open it up wide again and let it be big and full and rich. And that's what we're really doing here. We're navigating through our voice to get to the happy place on the top. So now here are a couple tips about things you can apply in a specific song. So when you're doing your exercises, that's kind of how you approach the voice, how you feel things physically. This is things you can do and look for in any piece of music. So there's 4 big tips here, and they're talking about keynotes, placing consonants, dropping things down the octave, and planning your breath. That's the 4 things I'm gonna address. So number 1, finding the keynote. This is what I call the note somewhere before the high note that is the answer to how to make the high note work. High notes usually are not the problem in and of themselves. They're usually a symptom that you didn't quite prepare as well as you needed to. So I call it the keynote, and it's usually a note maybe 3, 4 notes before the high note. And if you set up the keynote properly, then your high note is going to fly and be great, usually. If you don't set up the keynote properly and find that sweet spot, like we were talking about in the other video about the nice bright sound, if you don't set it up right, your high note's going to be a bit more of a struggle. So finding that keynote, it's different for every song. It's different even between voice parts, how it's approached, but it's usually a couple notes before the high note. And if that note is met with the right amount of breath and voice placement, it's going to help you do the high note. The next concept of putting the consonants, placing your consonants, it kind of relates to keynotes in a way. So this is where you've got a leap up and you've got a consonant to start the word. If you place the consonant on the high note, that's often going to close everything down and make you feel tense. That is the one time you might not want to do the thing we all do in choir, which is putting the consonant on the pitch we're singing. What we have to do here is put the consonant on the lower pitch and then jump up so the thing that's on the higher pitch is just that open vowel. So the example that I'm going to use is just a single do, mi, so, do up, but I'm going to sing Where Shall I Fly? First, if I put the fl, the FL on the high note, this is what we get. Where shall I fly? And it's just kind of squeezed. I don't like it so much. Didn't feel so good. Whereas if I place the fl on the note before the high note, where shall I fly? Then I've got space and breath for days on the top note. So I place the consonant on the note before. I don't want to slide. I don't want to do where shall I fly? We still have to be very accurate. We're just moving where we put that consonant. So let's try a couple of those. Where shall I fly? So we're really adding an extra note right now as the exercise. Where shall I fly? Nice and bright. Very nice. And that only went to an F sharp. You can certainly take that higher when you're working on your own tenors. But if you place that consonant, that will really help you open up for that top note. And you can even use that strategy when you're not singing a note before the high note. If maybe you enter on a high note, if you imagine you're putting the consonant on a lower pitch, that can sometimes help you release and open up the throat and make it feel really easy. The third thing is practicing high notes and high passages down the octave whenever you need to. If you're working for accuracy of pitch, accuracy of rhythm, accuracy of word pronunciation, any of those things, drop it down the octave. There's no need to be a hero and keep hammering away in that high part of your voice. That's exhausting. So especially in like one of the all region pieces this year is that Mozart Dies Irae basses, we're starting on a D. That's, a middling high note for us. So if I rehearse it a bunch of times, Dies Irae, that's going to get exhausting. If I drop it down the octave, Dies Irae, and sing it down there, it's very comfortable. And I can work on all the other things. Then eventually I put it back up the octave. The key here is when you sing on the low notes and you drop it down the octave, don't drop it down into your low chest voice sound. Drop it into that middle, maybe even a little head voice, so it's very light. It's going to feel very light down there. That's what you're going for because you're knowing I'm going to have to put it back up top. So I could sing this Dies Irae, heavy, but if I try that up top, I'm dead. So I got to think Dies Irae. It's very nice and bright, and it's ready to go back up the octave. The last thing I would say, plan your breaths accordingly. Not just in terms of how long can I make a phrase, but sometimes if you're singing a bunch of high notes and you have a little bit of a break of a half a beat or something, your instinct is, I need to put a breath there. But what happens sometimes when we take a good full breath, that can sometimes throw us out of our sweet spot. So if you're already targeting and you're in that zone, sometimes the key there is to carry through and not breathe, maybe put a little bit of a lift or something there with a little crescendo rather than a full-on breath. That can also help you maintain the right focus to the tone. That's something you really have to kind of look at the song itself and see if that's a helpful tip for you. So that's the end of my tips for part 3. Hopefully you find some of these helpful. And again, you can check out videos number 1 and 2. Hopefully these all help you become more confident with your high notes and your approach to them. There could be a million videos about how to sing high notes, and everybody has lots of different great ideas. These are just some of the things that I have found to be helpful, and I hope they're helpful for you as well.